Chapter 12. The Patroness. Harry knew that Hermione had meant well, but that didn't stop him from being angry with her. He had been the owner of the best broom in the world for the few short hours, and now, because of her interference, he didn't know whether he would ever see it again. He was positive that there was nothing wrong with the firebolt now, but what sort of state would it be in once it had been subjected to all sort of anti-jinx tests? Ron was furious with Hermione too, as far as he was concerned. The stripping down of a brand new firebolt was nothing less than criminal damage. Hermione, who remained convinced that she had acted for the best, started avoiding the common room. Harry and Ron supposed she had taken refuge in the library and didn't try to pursue her to come back. All in all, they were glad when the rest of the school returned shortly after New Year and Gryffindor Tower became crowded and noisy again. Wood sought Harry out on night before term started. Had a good Christmas, he said, and then without waiting for an answer, he sat down, lowered his voice, and said, I have been doing something over Christmas, Harry. After the last match, if the Dementor come to the next one, I mean we can't afford you to, well, Wood broke off, looking awkward. I'm working on it, said Harry quickly. Professor Lupin said he had trained me to ward off the Dementors. He should be starting this week. He said he had have time after Christmas, said Wood, his expressions clearing well. In that case, I really didn't want to lose you as a seeker, Harry. And have you ordered a new broom yet? No, said Harry. What? You had better get a move on, You can't ride that shooting star against Ravenclaws. He got a firebolt for Christmas, said Ron. A firebolt? No, seriously. Um, a real firebolt. Don't get excited, Oliver, said Harry gloomily. I haven't got it anymore. It was confiscated, and he explained all about how the firebolt was now being checked for jinxes. Jinxed? What could it be jinxed? Cyrus Black, Harry said weirdly. He's supposed to be after me, so McGonagall reckoned he might have sent it. Waving aside the information that a famous murderer was after his seeker, Wood said, but Black couldn't have bought a firebolt. He is on the run. The whole country on the lookout for him. How could it just walk into Quality Quid supplies and buy a broomstick? I know, said Harry, but McGonagall still wants to strip it down. Wood went pale. I'll go and talk to her, Harry, he promised. I'll make her see reason. A firebolt, a real firebolt. On our team, she wants Gryffindor to win as much as we do. I'll make her see sense. A firebolt. Classes started again. The next day, the last thing anyone felt like doing was spending 2 hours on the grounds on a raw January morning. But Hagrid was provided a bonfire full of salamanders for their enjoyment, and they spent an unusual good lesson collecting dry wood and leaves to keep the fire blazing while the flame-loving lizards scampered up and down the crumbling white-hot dogs. The first deviation lesson of the new term was much less fun. Professor Trelawney was now teaching them palmistry, and she lost no time in informing Harry that he had the shortest lifeline she had ever seen. It was defense against the dark art that Harry was keen to get to. After his conversation with Wood, he wanted to get started on his anti-dementor lesson as soon as possible. Yes, said Lupin, and Harry reminded him of his promise at the end of the class. Let me see, how about 8 o'clock on Thursday evening? The history of magic classroom should be large enough. I'll have to think carefully about how we are going to do this. We can't bring a real Dementor into the castle to practice on. Still look ill, doesn't he? Said Ron as they walked down the corridor heading to dinner. What do you reckon's the matter with him? There was a loud and impatient too from behind them. It was Hermione, who had been sitting at the feet of suit of armor, repacking her bag, which was full of books it wouldn't close. And what are you rooting at us for? Said Ron, irritable. Nothing, said Hermione in a lofty voice, having her backpack over her shoulder. Yes, you were, said Ron. I said, I wonder what's wrong with Lupin and you. Well, isn't it obvious, said Hermione with a look of maddening superiority. If you don't want to tell us, don't, snap Ron. Fine, said Hermione hotly, and she marched off. She doesn't know, said Ron, staring resentful after Hermione. She is just trying to get us to talk to her again. At 8 o'clock on Thursday evening, Harry left Gryffindor Tower for the History of Magic classroom. It was dark and empty when he arrived, but he lit the lamps with his wand and had waited for 5 minutes when Professor Lupin turned up, carrying a large packing case which he heaved into Professor Bean's desk. What's that? Said Harry. Another Bogart, said Lupin, staring off his clock. I have been comping the castle ever since Thursday, and very luckily I found this one lurking inside Mr. Flitch's filing cabinet. It's the nearest we'll get to a real Dementor. The Bogart will turn into a Dementor when he sees you. Will be able to practice on him. I can store him in my office when we are not using him. There is a cupboard under my desk. He'll like, okay, said Harry, trying to sound as though he wasn't apprehensive at all and merely glad that Lupin had found such a good substitute for a real Dementor. So Professor Lupin had taken out his own wand and indicated that Harry should do the same. The spell I am going to try and teach you is highly advanced magic, Harry, well beyond ordinary wizardian level. It is called as Patronus Charm. How does it work? Said Harry nervously. Well, when it works correctly, it conjures up the patrons, said Lupin, which is the kind of anti-Dementor, a guardian that acts as a shield between you and the Dementor. Harry had a sudden vision of himself crouching behind a Hagrid-sized figure holding a large club. Professor Lupin continued, the patrons is a kind of positive force, a projection of the very thing that the Dementor feeds upon. Hope, happiness, the desire to survive, but it cannot feel despair as real human can, so the Dementors can hurt it. But I must warn you, Harry, that the charm might be too advanced for you. Many qualified wizards have difficulty with it. What does a Patronus look like? Said Harry curiously. Each one is unique to the wizard who conjures it. And how do you conjure it? With an incantation which will work only if you are concentrating with all your might on a single very happy memory. Harry cast his mind about for a happy memory. Certainly nothing that had happened to him at the Dursleys was going to do. Finally he settled on the moment when he had first ridden a broomstick. Right, he said, trying to recall and exactly as possible the wonderful soaring sensation of his stomach. The incantation is this. Lupin cleared his throat. Expecto Patronum. Expecto Patronum. Harry repeated under his breath. Expecto Patronum. Concentrating hard on your happy memory. Oh yes, said Harry, quickly forcing his thoughts back to that first broom ride. Expecto Patronum. No, Patronum. Sorry, Expecto Patronum. Expecto Patronum. Something whoosed suddenly out of the end of his wand. It looked like a wisp of silvery gas. Did you see that? Said Harry excitedly. Something happened. Very good, said Lupin, smiling. Right then, ready to try it on Dementor? Yes, said Harry, gripping his wand very tightly and moving into the middle of the deserted classroom. He tried to keep his mind on flying, but something else kept intruding any second now. He might hear his mother again, but he shouldn't think that he or would hear her again, and he didn't want to, or did he? Lupin grasped the lid of the packing case and pulled. A Dementor rose slowly from the box, its hooded face turned toward Harry, one glistening scab hand gripping its clock. The lamp around the classroom flickered and went out. The Dementor stepped from the box and started to swim silently toward Harry. Drawing a deep rattle breath, a wave of piercing cold broke over him. Expecto patronum, Harry yelled, Expecto patronum, expecto. But the classroom and the Dementor were dissolving. Harry was falling again through thick white fog, and his mother's voice was louder than ever, echoing inside his head. Not Harry, not Harry, please, I do anything. Stand aside, girl. Harry, Harry jerked back to life. He was lying flat on his back on the floor. The classroom lamps were alight again. He didn't have to ask what had happened. Sorry, he muttered, sitting up and feeling cold sweating trickling down behind his glasses. Are you all right? Said Lupin. Yes. Harry pulled himself up on one of the desks and leaned against it. Here, Lupin handed him a chocolate frog. Eat this before we try again. I didn't expect you to do it for first time. In fact, I would have been astounded if you had. It's getting worse, Harry muttered, beating off the fog's head. I could hear her louder than times and him Voldemort. Lupin looked paler than usual. Harry, if you don't want to continue, I will more than understand. I do, said Harry fiercely, stuffing the rest of chocolate frog into his mouth. I have got to. What if the Dementor turn up at our match against Ravenclaws? I can't afford to fall off again. If we lose this game, we have lost the Quidditch Cup. All right then, said Lupin. You might want to select another memory, a happy memory. I mean, a concentrated one that he, one doesn't seem to have been strong enough. Harry thought hard and decided his feeling when Gryffindor had won the house championship last year had definitely qualified as very happy. He gripped his wand tightly again and took up his position in the middle of the classroom. Ready? Said Lupin, gripping the box lid. Ready? Said Harry, trying hard to feel his head with happy thoughts about Gryffindor winning and not dark thought about what was going to happen when the box opened. Go, said Lupin, pulling off the lid. The room went icily cold and dark once more. The Dementor guild forgot drawing its breath. One rotting hand was extending towards Harry. Expecto Patronum. Harry yelled, Expecto Patronum. Expecto Pat. White fog obscured his sense. Big dirt shapes were moving around him. Then came a new voice, a man's voice, shouting, panicking, Lily, take Harry and go. It's him. Go run. I'll hold him off. The sound of someone stumbling from a room, a door bursting open, a cackle of high-pitched laughter. Harry, Harry, wake up. Lupin was tapping Harry hard on his face. This time it was a minute before Harry understood why he was lying on the dusty classroom floor. I heard my dad, Harry mumbled. That's the first time I ever heard him. He tried to take on Voldemort himself to give my mom time to run for it. He suddenly realized that there were tears on his face, mingling with the sweat. He bent his face as low as possible, wiping them off on his robes, pretending to do not up his shoelace so that Lupin wouldn't see. You heard James, said Lupin in a strange voice. Yeah. Face dry, Harry looked up. Why, you didn't know my dad, did you? I did. As a matter of fact, said Lupin, we were friends at Hogwarts. Listen, Harry, perhaps we should leave it there. For tonight, this charm is ridiculous. At once, I shouldn't have suggested putting you through this. No, said Harry. We got up again. I'll have one more go. I'm not thinking of happy enough things, that's what it is. Hang on, he racked his brain. A really, really happy memory. One that he could turn into a good, strong patron the moment when he had first found out he was a wizard and would be leaving Dursleys for Hogwarts. That wasn't a happy memory. He didn't know what was, concentrating very hard on how he felt when he had realized he had been leaving private drive. Harry got to his feet and faced the packing case once more. Ready, said Lupin, who looked as though he were going this against his better judgment, concentrating hard. All right, go. He pulled off the lid of the case for the third time. and the Dementor rose out of it. The room felt cold and dark. Expecto Patronum. Harry bellowed, Expecto Patronum, Expecto Patronum. The screaming inside Harry's head started again. Expect this time. It sounded as though it were coming from a badly turned radio, softer and louder and softer again. And he could still see the Dementor. It had hatted, and then a huge silver shadow came bursting out of the end of Harry's wand to have ever been him, and then Dementor. And though Harry's leg felt like water, he was still on his feet, though for now much longer he wasn't sure. Ridiculous, roared Lupin, sprang forever. There was a loud crack, and Harry Clodley Patrons vanished. Along with the Dementor, he sank into a chair, feeling and exhausted as he just had run a mile, and felt his legs shaking out of the corner of his eyes. He saw Professor Lupin forcing the Bogart back into the packing case with his wand. It had turned into silvery over again. Excellent, Lupin said, striding over to where Harry sat. Excellent, Harry. That was definitely a start. Can we have another go? Just one more. Not now, said Lupin firmly. You have had enough for one night here. He handed Harry a large bar of honey ducks. Best chocolate. Eat a lot, or Madame Pomfrey will be after my blood. Same next time next week. Kate, said Harry. He took a bite of the chocolate and watched Lupin extinguishing the lamp and had reclined with disappearance of Dementor. Thought that just occurred to him. Professor Lupin, he said, if you knew my dad, you must have known Cyrus Black as well. Lupin turned very quickly. What gave you that idea? He said sharply. Nothing. I mean, I just knew they were friends at Hogwarts too. Lupin's face relaxed. Yes, I know him, he said shortly, or thought I did. You had better be off, Harry. It's getting late. Harry left the classroom, walking along the corridor and around a corner. The took off detour behind a suit of armor and sank down on its plinth to finish his chocolate, wishing he hadn't mentioned Black, as Lupin was obviously not keen on the subject. Then Harry's thought wandered back to his mother and father. He felt drained and strangely empty, even though he was so full of chocolate. Terrible though it was to hear his parents' last moment replayed inside his head. These were the only times Harry had heard their voices since he was a very small child. But he had never been able to produce a proper patrons if he half wanted to hear his parents again. They are dead, he told himself sternly. They are dead, and listen to each cause of them won't bring them back. You better get a grip of yourself if you want that Quidditch cup. He stood up, crammed the last bit of chocolate into his mouth, and headed back to Gryffindor's tower. Ravenclaw's played Slytherin a week after the start of term. Slytherin won, though narrow according to Wood. His was good news for Gryffindor, who would take second place if they beat Ravenclaw's too. He therefore increased the number of team practice to 5 weeks. This meant that with Lupin's anti-Dementor classes, which in themselves were more drained than 6 Quidditch practice, Harry had just one night a week to do all his homework. Even so, he wasn't showing the strain nearly as much as Hermione, whose immense workload finally seemed to getting to her. Every night, without fail, Hermione was to be seen in corner of the common room, several tables spread with books, arithmetic chart, run dictionary, diagram of Muggle lifting heavy objects, and pile upon pile of extensive notes. She barely spoke to anybody and snapped when she was interrupted. How's she doing? Ron muttered to Harry one evening as Harry sat finishing a nasty essay on undetectable portion of for Snap. Harry looked up. Hermione was barely visible behind a tottering pile of books. Doing what? Getting all her classes, Ron said. I heard her talking to Professor Victor, that Artemisy which this morning they were going on about yesterday's lesson, but Hermione can't have been there because she was with us in care of magical creature, and Ernie McMillan told me she never missed a Muggle studies classes, but half of them are at the same time as deviation, as she's never missed one of them either. Harry didn't have time to fatten the Ministry of Harmony's impossible schedule at the moment. He really needed to get on with Snip's AC. 2 seconds later, however, he was interrupted again, this time by Wood. Bad news, Harry. I have just been to see Professor McGonagall about the firebolt. She is got a bit shitty with me, told me I had got my priorities wrong, seemed to think I cared more about winning the cup than I do about you staying alive. Just because I told her I didn't care if it threw you off as long as you caught the snitch first. Wood shook his head in disbelief. Honestly, the way she was yelling at me, you had think I had said something terrible. Then I asked her how much longer she was going to keep it. He screwed up his face and imitated Professor McGonagall. Silver's voice, as long as necessary would. I reckon it's time you order a new broom. Harry, there is an order from at the back of which broomstick you could get a Nimbus 2001 like Malfoy got. I'm not buying anything Malfoy think it's good, said Harry flatly. January faded impatiently into February with no change in the bitterly cold weather. The match against Roundcliffe was drawing nearer and nearer, but Harry still hadn't ordered a new broom. He was now asking Professor McGonagall for news of the firebolt after every transfiguration lesson. Ron standing hopefully at his shoulder, Hermione rushing past with her face averted. No, Potter, you can't have it back yet. Professor McGonagall told him the 12th time this happened before you had even opened his mouth. We have checked for most of the usual curses, but Professor Flitwick believes the broom might be carrying a Horlicks hex. I shall tell you when we have finished checking it. Now please stop badgering me. To make matter even worse, Harry anti-Dementor lesson were not going nearly as well as he had hoped. Several lessons on, he was able to produce an indistinct silver shadow every time the Bogart Dementor approached him, but his Patronus was too feeble to drive the Dementor away. All it did was, however, like a semi-transparent cloud, draining Harry of energy as he fought to keep it there. Harry felt angry with himself, guilty about its secret desire to hear his parents' voice again. You are expecting too much from yourself, said Professor Lupin sternly in their fourth week of practice. For a 13-year-old wizard, even an indistant patron in a huge achievement, you aren't passing out anymore, are you? I thought a patron would charge the Dementor down or something, said Harry desperately. Make them disappear. The true patron does do that, said Lupin, but you have achieved a great deal in a very short space of time. If Dementor put in an appearance at your next quiz match, you will be able to keep them at bay long enough to get back to the ground. You said it harder. If there are lots of them, said Harry. I have complete confidence in you, said Lupin, smiling here. You have earned a drink something from the three brooms. You won't have tried it before. He pulled two bottles out of his briefcase. Beer, said Harry without thinking. Yeah, I like that stuff. Lupin raised an eyebrow. Oh, Ron and Hermione brought me some back from Oxford. Harry lied quickly. I see, said Lupin, thought he still looked slightly suspicious. Well, let's drink to Gryffindor victory against Ravenclaw. No, that's I'm supposed to take side as a teacher, he added hastily. They drank and better beer in silence until Harry's voice, something we had been wondering for a while. What's under the Dementor's hood? Professor Lupin lowered his bottle thoughtfully. Well, the only people who really know are in no condition to tell us. You see, the Dementor lowered its hook only to use its last and worst weapon. Oh, what's that? They call it a Dementor's kiss, said Lupin with a slightly twisted smile. It's what Dementor do to those they wish to destroy utterly. I suppose there must be some kind of mouth under there because they clap their jaws upon a mouth of the victim and suck out his soul. Harry accidentally spurted out a bit of butterbeer. What they kill? Oh no, said Lupin, much worse than that. You can exist without your soul, you know, as long as your brain and heart are still working, but you will have no sense of self anymore, no memory, no anything. There is no chance at all to recover. You will just exist as an empty shell, and your soul is gone, forever lost. Lupin drank a little more butterbeer, then said, It's the fact that awaited Cyrus Black. It was a daily prophet. This morning the ministry have given the Dementor permission to perfume it if they find him. Harry sat stunned for a moment at the idea of someone having their soul sucked out through their mouth, but then he thought of Black. He deserved it, he said suddenly. You think so? Said Lupin lightly. Do you really think anyone deserved that? Yes, said Harry definitely. For something he would have liked to have told Lupin about the conversation he had overheard about Black in the Three Broomsticks, about Black betraying his mother and father, but it would have involved revolving that he had gone to Hogsmeade without permission, and he knew Lupin wouldn't be very impressed by that. So he finished his butterbeer, thanked Lupin, and left the history of magic class to Harry half wished that he hadn't asked what had under Dementor's hood, and answer had been so horrible, and he was so lost in unpleasant thought of what it would feel like to have your soul sucked out of you that he walked headlong into Professor McGonagall halfway up the stair. Do watch, there you are going, Potter. Sorry, Professor. I have just been looking for you in the Gryffindor common room. Well, here it is. We have done everything we could think of. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it all. You have got a very good friend, somewhere, Potter. Harry jaw dropped. He was holding out his fireball, and it looked as magnificent as ever. I can have it back, Harry said weakly. Seriously, seriously, said Professor McGonagall, and she was actually smiling. Drazi, you need to get the feel of it before Saturday's match, won't you? And Potter do try and win, won't you? Or will be out of the running for the 8th year in a row, as Professor Snape was kind enough to remind me only last night. Speechless, Harry carried the firebolt back upstairs toward Gryffindor Tower. As he turned a corner, he saw Ron dashing towards him, grinned from ear to ear. She gave it to you. Excellent. Listen, can I still have to go on it tomorrow? Yeah, anything, said Harry, his heart lighter than it had been in a month. You know what? We should make it up, Hermione. She was only trying to help. Yeah, all right, said Ron. She is in the common room now, working for a change. They turned into the corridor to Gryffindor Tower and saw Neville Longbottom pleading with Sir Cadogan, who seemed to be refusing him entrance. I wrote them down, Neville was saying carefully, but I must have dropped them somewhere. I likely tell, roared Sir Cadogan, then spotting Harry and Ron. Good evening, my fine young yeoman. Come on, clap this loon in irons. He is still trying to force entry to the chamber within. Oh, shut up, said Ron as he had Harry drew level with Neville. I have lost the password, Neville told them miserably. I made him tell me that password he was going to use this week because he keeps changing them, and now I don't know what I have done with them. Odoskin, said Harry to Sir Dagon, who looked extremely disappointed and reluctant, swung forward to let them into the common room. There was a sudden, excited murmur as everyone had turned, and the next moment Harry was supported by people exclaiming, Oh, his firebolt! Where do you get it, Harry? Will you let me have a go? Have you ridden it yet? Ravenclaws have no chance. They are all on clean sweep sevens. Can I just hold it, Harry? After 10 minutes or so, during which the firebolts was passed around the admirer From every angle, the crowd dispersed, and Harry and Ron had a clear view of Hermione. The only person who hadn't rushed over to them bent over her work and carefully avoiding their eyes. Harry and Ron approached her table, and at last she looked up. I got it back, said Harry, grinning at her and holding it up the firebook. See, Hermione, there wasn't anything wrong with it, said Ron. Well, there might have been, said Hermione. I mean, at last you know. Now it's safe. Yeah, I suppose so, said Harry. I had better put it upstairs. I'll take it, said Ron eagerly. I have got to give Scabber his rat tonic. He took the firebolt and, holding it as if it were made of glass, carried it away up the boys' staircase. Can I sit down then? Harry asked Hermione. I suppose so, said Hermione, moving a great stack of parchment off chair. Harry looked around at a cluttered table, at the long armsy essay on which the ink was still glistening, at the even longer Muggle study essay explaining why Muggles need electricity, and at the ruined translation Hermione was now poring over. How are you getting through as all the stuff? Harry asked her. Oh, well, working hard, said Hermione. Close up. Harry saw that she looked almost as tired as Lupin. Why don't you just drop a couple of subjects? Harry asked, watching her lifting books as she searched for her tuned dictionary. I couldn't do that, said Hermione, looking scandalized. Artemisy looked terrible, said Harry, picking up a very complicated looking number chart. Oh no, it's wonderful, said Hermione earnestly. It's my favorite subject. It's but exactly what was wonderful about Artemisy, Harry never found out. At that precise moment, a strangled yell echoed down the boys' staircase. The whole common room fell silent, staring petrified at the entrance. Then came hurried footsteps, groaned louder and louder, and then Ron come leaping into view, dragging with Luke a bed heat. Look, he bellowed, striding over to the harmonious table. Look, he yelled, shaking the sheet in her face. Ron, what? Scabber. Look, Scabber. Hermione was leaning away from Ron, looking utterly bewildered. Harry looked down at the sheet Ron was holding. There was something red on it, something that blurred horrible like blood. Ron yelled into the stunned silence. He is gone, and you know what was on their floor? No, said Hermione in tumbling voice. Ron threw something down into Hermione's run translation. Hermione and Harry leaned forward, lying on top of the weird spiky shape where several long ginger had here. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.